Hey everyone, and welcome to RUBIN'S Mind Lab, where we break down the latest research into what it really means. Ever wonder why talking about periods can feel so awkward, even with other women? This new study dives deep into how the stigma around menstruation affects our conversations, even when we're talking about our health. This research looked at how that stigma plays out when women talk about their menstrual health, both with each other and with doctors. It's a fascinating look at a very common, yet often silenced, experience. So, what exactly is enacted stigma anyway? Think of it as the way stigma is shown or acted out. It's not just a feeling, it's how we and others behave because of those negative beliefs. The researchers wanted to understand how the stigma makes conversation about something as natural as a period so difficult. The introduction paints a picture of how menstruation has been historically portrayed as dirty or something to be hidden. This isn't new. We've seen how media and advertising often emphasize concealment, making menstrual blood seem unpleasant. This leads to women internalizing these messages, becoming hyper-vigilant about their bodies and what they might reveal, are at the heart of the problem. Hegemonic femininity is basically the dominant, idealized version of what it means to be a woman, often portrayed as clean, composed, and always in control. Menstruation, with its potential for visible signs and emotional fluctuations, can feel like it goes against this ideal, creating a need to hide it. This study highlights that even though menstruation is a natural bodily function for so many, it is treated like a secret. This research asked 45 women to share their experiences, chatting with them for about 24 to 75 minutes each about how they talk about their periods. They used what's called reflexive thematic analysis, which is a fancy way of saying they looked really closely at the stories the women told to find patterns and meanings. This is an important point in qualitative research. It means they approached the topic with lived experience, which can offer a unique perspective. They recruited participants through social media, which is a pretty modern way to find people willing to talk about sensitive topics. So, mostly younger women, which makes sense given how this research was advertised. They didn't have many other requirements, just that participants identified as menstruating women. Pretty detailed conversations. The questions were open-ended, like, what emotions arise when you talk about menstruation? And do you adjust your behaviors or speech during menstruation? Why and how? These kinds of questions really get to the heart of personal experiences. Once they had all these interviews, they started coding them, breaking down the conversations into smaller pieces and looking for recurring ideas. It's like piecing together a puzzle to see the bigger picture of how women experience and handle conversations about their periods. Now, let's get to the cool part. What did they find? They identified a few key themes. One of the biggest findings was that women often found safe spaces to talk about menstruation. These were usually with close friends, in women-only groups like all-girls schools or sports teams. In these spaces, the usual rules of silence and secrecy could be thrown out the window. It turns out that when women can talk openly and honestly about cramps, heavy bleeding, or mood swings, it creates a powerful sense of connection. They feel less alone, realizing others go through similar things. This is what they call menstrual moaning in the paper, which might sound negative but can actually be a way for women to bond and support each other. Beyond emotional support, these safe spaces were also places to exchange practical information. Think advice on managing PMS recommendations for period products, or comparing notes on how much is normal to bleed. This kind of peer-to-peer learning is incredibly valuable, especially when official or public spaces are so often silent on the topic. Even in these safe spaces, the ingrained need to conceal menstruation was still present. Friends would look out for each other, checking for leaks or stains, showing how deeply the stigma runs. It's a way of managing the stigma of abominations of the body, as the research puts it. But what happens when women talk to people outside these trusted circles? And especially to healthcare professionals? This is where things get more complicated. Many women reported self-censoring, either staying silent or using vague terms when talking about period symptoms in public or at work. So, if a woman is dealing with severe cramps, she might say she has a headache instead of admitting its period pain. This is driven by anticipated stigma, the fear of negative reactions, or that they'll be seen as overly emotional or hysterical. This is particularly true in healthcare settings. This is summed up by one participant saying, "I never felt that I could open up about things because I would always get the same answer." This lack of feeling heard and the pressure to accept a one-size-fits-all solution like the pill can really erode trust. When women's experiences are dismissed, it can make them feel crazy, helpless, and question their own perceptions of their health. This distrust can lead to them delaying or avoiding seeking medical help altogether. The study isn't all doom and gloom. It also highlights the incredible power of positive interactions with doctors and nurses. When healthcare providers are empathetic, listen actively, and validate a woman's experience, it can be transformative. Participants felt empowered to open up, share their concerns, and discuss choices without feeling pressured or judged. This builds trust and encourages them to seek help in the future. And importantly, the study found that some women are actively pushing back against the stigma. They are challenging norms by talking more openly about menstruation, even deliberately trying to make people uncomfortable to break down the taboo. This is menstrual activism in action, challenging the idea that periods are something to be ashamed of. They might do this by refusing to hide period products, or by insisting on talking about their symptoms even when others shift uncomfortably. It is about reclaiming menstruation as a normal, healthy part of life. So, what does this all mean? The core takeaway is that menstrual stigma is not just a minor inconvenience, it has real consequences on women's health and well-being. When women can't talk openly about their experiences, especially with healthcare providers, it can lead to delayed diagnosis, continued suffering, and a breakdown of trust in the medical system. This self-censorship, driven by the fear of judgment, means that many women suffer in silence. They might not seek help for issues that could be easily addressed or conditions that could become more severe. On the flip side, the study shows us the path forward. Creating safe spaces for conversation, whether among friends or in supportive healthcare settings, is crucial. And encouraging menstrual activism, where people normalize talking about periods, can help dismantle these harmful stigmas. The study's limitations are worth noting too. While these 45 women offered incredibly valuable insights, it was a relatively young group. Future research could explore these issues with a wider range of ages and identities, including non-binary and trans menstruators, to understand how stigma intersects with other forms of discrimination. Hearing from healthcare providers themselves about their perspectives on these conversations would also be fascinating. Ultimately, this research reminds us that talking about menstruation is a critical part of women. As health, it pushes back against the idea that periods are shameful or disgusting. It highlights the need for better education, more supportive healthcare interactions, and a society that's less afraid to acknowledge this normal biological process. What do you think about these findings? Have you experienced similar things? Let me know in the comments below. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to RUBIN'S Mind Lab for more science explorations, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.